Well, technology has advanced enormously, of course, over the last few hundred years. We all know that. But the rate of change, if anything, is accelerating. And the amount of change that we and our descendants will have to deal with is going to make what happened in the past look like child's play. One of the areas that's developing incredibly quickly is the area of machine learning, AI, and its close cousin or descendant, deep fakes. Deep fakes are getting better and they're being used in more and more creative ways. To discuss this increasingly significant issue with me, David Cotter returns to the Aussie Wire. David, thank you so much for joining us again.
Hello, Topher. It's good to be here.
Now, you in a past life, you worked a little bit on getting a robot to be able to play the guitar. From what I understand in that project, you ultimately abandoned it when you discovered that even robots insist on playing Wonderwall every single set that they play. Is that true?
You're a tease. I never said that at all. I won't come on this show again if you're going to be like that.
No, I am joking, of course, but you do have a background in technology and in the arts, and it puts you in a unique position to talk about this really interesting issue. For those that aren't aware of the catalyst, let me play you a video. And if you're watching this, just keep in mind, it is a deep fake. Please don't go rushing out there to hand over your personal information to scammers.
Hey y'all, it's Taylor Swift here. Due to a packaging error, we can't sell 3,000 Le Creuset cookware sets, so I'm giving them away to my loyal fans for free. If you're seeing this ad, you can get a free Le Creuset cookware set today. But just a heads up, there are a few rules.
It goes on, of course. Now, apologies for the little gaps in the audio there. I had to find whatever video I could online. It's been expunged from Meta, which is where it went viral. And this scam was apparently very effective. And apparently a very significant number of Swiftie fans were sucked in and went on to get to lose money and to lose information in that scam. David, what's your take on this?
I have many takes. I'm not too sure where to start. I mean, on the one hand, when I first saw it, I thought it was rather poor quality. However, a leading professor at the University of Buffalo came out and said that called it a decent quality deepfake. And at the same time, he pointed to the fact that a video of that nature would only take 45 minutes to make.
Yeah.
So this is something we're going to see much more of. So my initial takes were this is poor quality, but it took a lot of people in.
Mm-hmm.
My other take was this is kind of funny. In a way. I mean, I didn't wake up expecting to see a story unravel that had Le Creuset, a luxury kind of cookware brand with Taylor Swift and artificial intelligence wrapped up in one. But I did.
Now, to be clear, neither Taylor Swift nor Le Creuset had anything to do with that. That was a scam created by third parties using and really riding on the brand value of those two brands to try and suck people in. I tend to agree with you, David. I don't think that's a high-quality deep fake at all. And maybe I'm just a cold-hearted old codger, but there's a part of me that says if you got sucked in by that, you kind of needed to in order to learn that lesson and maybe be a little more cautious in the future. There's a couple of things that really struck me that I'll mention and then I'll quickly replay the start. They're very quick to cut away from Taylor Swift's image. They don't stay with Taylor Swift's face on the screen for very long. The lip syncing is terrible. There is no real relationship between her lips and the words that are supposedly being spoken. And the rest of the images are actually just ripped directly from Le Creuset ads. Let's have a quick watch again at the start of this. And these, for me, are all warnings, along with who's actually posted it. Has this actually come from a Taylor Swift official account, or has it not? Have a look.
Hey y'all, it's Taylor Swift here. Due to a packaging error, we can't sell 3,000 Le Creuset cookware sets, so I'm giving them away to my loyal fans for free. If you're seeing this ad, you can get a free Le Creuset cookware set today. But just a heads up, there are a few rules.
It's terrible.
You must live in the United States.
It just astonishes me that this, I mean, if it only took 45 minutes, okay, that changes things because the voice is reasonably convincing. But there are much more convincing versions out there. An example would be this one. It's fairly well known. I know you've seen this before, David. This video here that purports to be Morgan Freeman. And that there is the crucial question. Deepfakes are now on the cusp. If someone's willing to put the processing hours into it to make a good one, and that's an example of a relatively good one, not perfect, but very good. They can start to play with our perception of reality. Where do you see this going?
They're playing with our perception of reality, but also in the context of the Taylor Swift video, they're creating something that people want to believe to be true. And I don't succumb to this, but I feel the same way myself. Occasionally I'll receive a spam email bequeathing me, maybe not so many $1 million, but maybe a grand piano or something. And I think to myself, well, this sounds legitimate. What if it is legitimate? In a perfect world, maybe there is someone out there who's ready to bequeath me a Steinway grand.
Yeah.
And I think this taps into the cult of the personality, cult of celebrity. This isn't anyone giving away a freebie. This is Taylor Swift. This is the number one streamed artist, listened to artist of 2023. To put that into context, she got streamed on Spotify 26.1 billion times last year.
Yeah, wow.
I mean, there are only 8 billion people in the world. Most of them don't have access to Spotify, the internet. And this is Spotify alone. We're talking about someone who is at the very top of the top. I mean, of all the artists on Spotify, only about 25,000 make something approximating a yearly wage. And as there are 11, 12 million plus artists in total, this equates to something like 1 in 500 people. I mean, Taylor Swift is queen of the world right now. And so even if 0.01 of her fans fall for this, those numbers are huge. So again, I mean, Morgan Freeman, he might not quite have the following of Taylor Swift, but he's still a
huge
phenomenal actor who we might argue will stand the test of time more than her. And I have seen deepfakes of figures that are bigger than both of them combined, especially when we get to the political sphere.
Well, you mentioned earlier in the interview that you weren't going to come back on because I was teasing you about Wonderwall. Well, you're definitely not going to come back on now because I don't mind a bit of a Taylor Swift marathon. I don't mind a lot of her music, and I do think though that my local radio station has put Spotify to shame and has probably played a Taylor Swift song a lot more than 21 billion times this year. It seems that they have her on relentless repeat. But it is interesting to think about the psychology of this sort of cult of personality because as much as they're getting a lot of attention because it's Taylor Swift, obviously deepfake Taylor Swift, ultimately the thing that they're offering, which to be clear, it wasn't real, it was a scam, but the thing that they were offering was the cookware. And the cookware is the same whether it's Morgan Freeman offering it or Taylor Swift offering it or me offering it. The cookware that would be, if it were legitimate, would be exactly the same. There's something about the psychology there that I find very interesting.
Absolutely. I mean, there was a degree of realism insofar as Le Creuset cookware has featured in the background of Taylor Swift's Instagram posts. Okay. She has featured them, not in a selling capacity, but they are visible on certain of her Tumblr posts over the years. So if you were I think some thought has gone into this.
Yeah.
In that she's connected to the product in a roundabout way, as many people are. I mean, they've obviously, the brand itself, Le Creuset, has a certain degree of cultural capital. It's I don't know what it's like down under, but here in Europe, definitely they are definitely a kind of a symbol of, that's what you might call a middle class lifestyle. So the product and the person are tapping into a type of lifestyle that the consumer would want to inhabit. So that's how deep this thing goes.
Well, I can't comment on the UK situation, but I know here in Australia, if I go to someone's house and they are using Le Creuset, I assume they wipe their bottom with $50 bills. I mean, they must have a lot of money to burn. It's incredibly expensive over here. But there is a real dark side and a very, very serious side to deep fakes. And you mentioned the political sphere, and I've got an example here of exactly that. And this is where things can turn very, very dark. The video I'm about to show you is a deep fake. Now, what he's doing is he's telling Ukrainian troops to lay down their arms and to stop the defense of Ukraine against Russia. Now, this, for me, that's the danger. That's the real dark side right there, is the ability to sow discord and confusion into critical situations like a war.
Absolutely. And personally, I can only see this as becoming more of a problem. If we want to chart, let's say, using very broad brushstrokes here, the evolution, we have AI. What is artificial intelligence? Well, it's machines being used to mimic human behavior. Within that, we have machine learning. What's that? Well, it's machines parsing data and then coming up with new developmental models, algorithms based on that, to which a human can then look at and say, yes, that looks about right, or that looks wrong. And we go back and forth. Deep learning, situated within machine learning, situated within artificial intelligence, is when a machine passes the data, uses it to make predictions, then reflects itself in an almost human capacity, says, yes, this is realistic, or no, this isn't realistic. If it isn't realistic, it'll go back. It'll do the same again. So it's kind of self-improving. We can think of it in that way. So you can see just in these three simple steps that there's an acceleration of the technology here. So if we don't think that the videos are going to come much more lifelike than the Zelensky video you just showed me, then, well, we're naive beyond comprehension.
Well, misinformation and disinformation have been a genuine problem in politics since time immemorial, certainly in war. This isn't a new, even though we have everyone's talking about it because the government wants to regulate it and wants to have control over our speech using misinformation and disinformation as an excuse. The fact is, it does exist. It is a real thing. We saw, for example, during the Second World War with the Japanese surrender, there were a significant proportion of Japanese troops that did not believe the leaflets that got dropped over them. They thought it was American propaganda. And you can have some sympathy for that position because, well, why wouldn't the Americans drop leaflets and lie and claim that there's a surrender that hasn't actually happened? How do we live alongside each other? How do we navigate politics? Let's put aside war for a moment. How do we navigate politics when we're entering a world where not only will everyone have their own truths, but everyone is going to have their own very clear-cut evidence for those truths, and we're all going to be accusing each other of using and relying on deepfakes?
Well, there is a silver lining to all of this, and that is that I think people will be waking up to the very real reality of what is out there. The number of, let's say, psychopathic behaviors and people that fall prey to psychopathic behaviors in life is a relatively stable phenomenon.
Okay.
And what generally happens in cultures is that psychopathy, lying, scams, whatever you want to call these things collectively, they proliferate. And then it gets to a certain point where people become wise to this. People,
Sure.
Batten down the hatches. People will start questioning everything they see. And I do believe this could go out one of two ways. Technology is going to have to be developed in new directions to circumvent this kind of human wariness, or they're just going to be ignored. At which point, people might become more relaxed again. There might be a new proliferation of, concerning deep fakery. But I'm afraid your guess is as good as mine.
Well, with respect to Shirley Bassey, it's all just a little bit of history repeating, isn't it? I mean, we have new technologies, but these are old problems, and I think you're absolutely right. We're going to have to go through that process. And maybe that buttresses my point. Maybe the Swifties needed to get swindled in order to become wiser and to become more wary of the increasing sophistication of these deepfakes. Well, David Cotter, thank you so much for joining us here on the Aussie Wire. We'll have you on again soon.
It's been an absolute pleasure. Speak soon.